Let me make sure I press the green button because I'm kind of famous for not doing that.
It's all good.
Well, Linda is staying. That's citizen comment, right?
Yeah, but we're going to do executive session first.
Right.
So,
Yep. It's Wednesday, September 11th. Don Wright, Chairman of the Oregon City Library Board, calling the Library Board to meeting. And pursuant to Oregon statutes, today we're going to go into executive session for the first few minutes of the meeting under Oregon Statute 192.630, paragraph 2.
at this time, I would like to introduce Krista Bailey from CRESA, and she is going to report on some of the work that we've been doing. And Krista, if you would like to come up to the microphone, that would be great.
To turn it on.
Yeah, if it's not red, yeah.
Red? Red is good.
Yeah, red is
Okay.
good.
So I know I was not the one here for the last report, but we outlined a 90-day period of kind of pre-entitlement due diligence, as we've dubbed it. And so we're just reporting back on that because we started that in roughly June, so we're in September. And I'm just going to run through the studies and the contracts that we've done. So one of them was a parking and traffic study. That is still in progress. We've contracted with McKinsey Group to take a look at that. So far, the transportation engineers have collected data on the library use to calculate some trip generation and parking demands requirements for the library. The preliminary study is indicating that all things are positive relative to the parking requirements being accommodated for the expanded library. So that's looking good. We contracted with Geodesign for a geotechnical report to test soils and give us some input on what our foundations would be and how that would look. That report has come back good within the assumptions. It's let us know that we can support with conventional spread footings, which means that it's not a lot of work, not a lot of extra earthwork. The only note that they made for us was that we do have very fine-grained soil in that area, and that we're going to be benefited by looking to do our site work in the summer months or the dry months, because wet work, earthwork on that site is going to be more challenging and more expensive. So. Environmentally, we didn't need to do any kind of environmental reports. There's no water or wetlands or anything like that needed to be studied. We did have an arborist do a study of the trees on that site. Got some good, interesting information about the trees on that site, which is that many of the trees that had been previously in a previous report or a previous tree plan had been classified as oaks are actually American white elms. So I think as I looked at the study, there's actually only one oak tree on that property.
Probably the one we just planted.
So, and they did give us some information. There's some concern there, and there's actually some presence of some disease and some poor health on quite a few of those trees on the site that need some attention, and that in general the site would benefit from a really robust mitigation process, which really would be a regeneration of your trees and a redo of the trees, which I think really bodes well for that site too, in terms of giving it some new life through
Does
its
that
trees.
report also talk about the past mitigations attempts by the city? They've been culling those elms for years.
Yeah, they didn't have historical information. They were going off of a plan, and they did identify that the plan that they were going off of, clearly many trees had already been removed
Yes.
since the last time it had been studied. So they've updated our tree plan
Well,
essentially
I just
for
think
us.
it's important to note, whenever we talk about this, that this isn't a new thing. This has been going on for years and years and years. So.
Yeah, and so we would could dive into that and dive into what makes sense on that site too when we affect it by construction. Right at this point, there's only 4 or 5 trees that look like they would be highly impacted by construction, but certainly it could be looked at holistically.
Okay.
So. Programming and block plan, which is essentially us trying to figure out, what's the makeup of a 20,000 square foot or so library. That is ongoing with THA. We're underway. We've had some meetings with Mo to develop what her needs are for the library. We had the one public meeting last week where we started generating input from the community to hear what they needed. So things are being formulated. We've got a target of the end of the month to have a preliminary program which informs us of how that space would be best utilized and shows us maybe how that would stack into the revised library. So bond timing, we've fleshed that out. We understand what the election timing is, what the requirements are. We, at this point, would need to take a recommendation from this board in January to the City Commission to make a resolution to put it on the ballot in February, and then putting that bond on the ballot for May. So, and then regarding the financial part of that, those discussions are still ongoing. We have been working with the finance group and the bond provider, essentially, and confirming what those rates are. And within the next, once we have the programming plan, that's when we plan to do the budget update, and so then we'll reset where we think what the financial basis is going to be. So that is, I think, essentially where we're at. So I think we're looking for a revised budget by the end of October. So
We'll take that, depending on timing, it depends kind of which meeting comes up first, the city commissioner or you guys, But what we want to do is, take it to our support groups and the electeds and say, okay, so this would be next steps, and then just kind of keep going, So at some point in time, we'll be getting an RFP out there for an architect and a contractor and a project manager.
That's
But
before the first of the year, right?
Well, yeah.
architect, project management, and architecture most likely would be before the first of the year. Yes.
And then some decisions will have to be made, though, about how much they do and how much we dive into before we get bond approval. That will be kind of the balance that we'll have to do. But it would be really nice if we were like, well, we still have a lot of design work to do. Lots.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So if we could get them on board and get them going on it, the sooner keep that momentum.
Well, we have to remember that construction was advised to start in warm months, too.
Yes.
So that
And
could affect a lot of things.
Right now we have a sequence that we could maybe get there. Yeah. So.
So,
Okay.
questions?
Questions? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, Krista. Thanks for coming.
And then Maureen, I think you're up then with your.
Okay. So, let's see. Why don't we just start with my regular boring stuff? Which is what's been going on at the library while we're trying to build the building. Business goes on at the library. And foot traffic is up, circulation is down. I know you've heard me say that before, the library to go circulation is up, but it doesn't really make up for the difference in the down part of the regular materials. But we've been seeing an awful lot of people at the library, that's for sure. It was like, what, 18,000, over 18,000 people in the month of August, which is a lot. See you later, Krista. And I just wanted to point out on the statistics, if you look under the top part where it says direct loans to public, there's now a YA category that's like separate on its own, and there's no statistics for this time last year. And the reason is that the state report that we provide by October 1 of every year, which I'll bring that to you next month, has changed like how they want us to report the statistics. And so our link network provides us statistics as best they can to match up to the state report. So at the end of the year when we provide it to them, we just have to kind of go bink, 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 you know, and fill in the numbers. And so that's why this got changed from last year, and that's why there's no statistic from last year to compare it to. So the programs, the children's programs, just continue to expand.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? It's really good. Because as you could hear from our public meeting, the children's stuff is really, 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 really important. And we could always improve on that. But we are also adding an all ages family story time this Saturday at 11 a.m., which I think will be really nice. And once that happens, we'll be having 7 story times a week, 6 days a week. Wednesday we have 2. So I think that's really good, and which is not to say that, you know, our storytime people couldn't improve and da-da-da-da-da, but we're really trying to, like, impact those guys. Because, you know, the whole preschool literacy thing is, like, way big, that we provide that well. In fact, I just put a thing on Facebook today that said something really depressing, like 1 in 7 adults is illiterate. And it's like, it's still really depressing out there, you know, so everything we can do is
I think one
important.
of them dumped their sofa in our park overnight.
Oh, sorry.
One of those illiterate people.
And let's see what else is significant in here. Well, we had our staff training day, which was really good. You may have noticed that we're going to start a Minecraft club.
Yeah.
You like that idea, Dan?
I do.
Yeah.
My sons play it. I don't.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's very cool.
I think we could attract a lot of younger kids through that.
Will it be teen only?
No, we're not just 18 and above, no. Yeah. I don't know what the age will be.
Okay.
Is that what you said?
Yeah, like is it teen only? Because I know younger
teen
kids
only.
play it.
Yeah, no, I think it will be more broad than that, because I think kids down to like,
Yeah.
like Linda's grandson plays
Yeah,
it. He's
Taylor
5.
Taylor plays that.
Yeah, okay.
Well, it's electronic Legos for crying out loud.
Yeah, that's pretty much
I know,
what it
right?
is.
So,
Yeah.
It's building.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
building, but I mean,
There's zombies in it, but
there's fantasy
not
adventure
really.
type stuff in it, but it's all block type characters, and you build your castles and your churches and your houses and whatnot. And you have to try and figure out how to save your resources and protect your people and whatnot from the
very
marauding
popular.
hordes. It's pretty fun.
so it might be a
Sounds
really,
like you've played it.
yeah.
I haven't actually.
Watch
My boys
it.
that play it.
Yeah, it might be a really fun way to keep certain kids engaged,
Yeah.
and you know, the library and in you know, local activities and stuff like that, because there's not a lot going on here. So for certain age groups, right, Dan?
Yeah.
And otherwise, nothing else really jumps out at me on that. Any questions about the report or the statistics? And I'm sorry you didn't get this report until like today, because yeah.
Is that the report? I've read all of yours, but it kind of gets run together. I don't have my screen up, but there's one of them where you've linked now with Cheryl Strait's husband.
Yeah, so so our film that we're going to have in November is his film, Alien Boy, which I just learned has a local connection. I did not know that. Apparently, it's the story of James Chassis, or I think that's how you pronounce his name. And apparently, he's got family that live locally. This was a young man who was killed by the police. I mean, he was brought to jail. He had through a mentally ill episode, and he was brought to jail, and eventually he died in jail or something like that. I don't know the whole story, but Cheryl Strayed's husband, Brian Lindstrom, is the filmmaker who did it. And Sue Mock, who I met through Clackamas Community College, said, "I just saw this. It was amazing. Let's do a little collaborating on this. I'll get some kids down there. If you contact Brian, I'm sure he would say yes." So he did say yes, and I like his prices a lot better than Cheryl's. Let's just say that.
Okay.
Yes, he's very reasonable, and so he'll be there. And now that I know there's a local connection, I will get in touch with him ahead of time as well, and just kind of
We could pump this up.
feel that out a little bit. Yeah. And then next month is the Ride the Divide one at the end of the Oregon Trail, which I think will be very, very fun as well. And it will be fun to have something there in that forum, because they have comfortable seats. Besides it being like a fun, a little bit different, less serious, I think it could be actually pretty serious if you're out trying to like ride the Rockies in the middle of the night. It could be dangerous, but it's not, like world starvation and stuff
Having
like that.
lived in the Rockies, it's dangerous, period.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that was through that connection, and she was fantastic. So I'm really hoping that we can do more things together through them.
Good.
Yeah. So the other thing is, well, first of all, I just wanted to get the people who could attend the public meeting the other night, get your take on it. DA and Don, I know you guys were there.
Yeah, I was really tickled to hear the input, intelligent input from the audience. They were thinking about this, and they had concerns, and they weren't afraid to throw them out there. And that's exactly what I would think we should be having for that kind of meeting. I thought it was super.
What kind of turnout? I mean, how many?
Oh, the place
This
is
room
full.
was full.
Yeah,
Really?
this place is full.
And it was the night that it poured rain.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah. And it would have even been fuller, but I made the mistake somehow of scheduling it at the same night as the library book club. And so I know, like, Linda would have been there, and other people that are very interested because they obviously come to the book club regularly.
We
They
did
would have
talk
come.
about it there, though.
Yeah, and Claire, yeah. Which is
Yeah.
great that you guys did talk about it some, yeah.
My take was there wasn't anything, really negative, and you shouldn't be doing this type of thing. I mean, it was more of a constructive type of question, I thought. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think anything came out of it that was like really significantly off the wall.
No.
So it's I would
Nobody-
say it's pretty much what you'd expect to hear.
Nobody
But
was
good support.
upset that we were sticking with our location.
No, none of that.
No, none of that.
There was no complaining about that at all. It was all very positive about, that's the site and this is what we want to see inside.
Yeah.
So we didn't have to listen to a lot of external complaining. It stayed very focused.
Yeah, a few people had some comments about how we could improve what we're doing now. I mean, and that's good feedback for me,
Anytime
regardless,
you can get that.
so.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did
Even-
you have the questions that you have online, do you have papers where people responding from specific or just generally?
No, we went through the presentation, and I just got the link for that today, so I'll be posting that. And so we just went kind of through the presentation, and we talked about different elements, of light and flexibility and blah, blah, blah. And that was kind of enough to spur the conversation, because once people got going, there was really no break in the action.
That's right.
I thought it was good.
Could have used 2 microphones.
Well, we had 2 microphones, and then Linda stayed out there. I don't know why.
Ah,
There was a microphone sitting right on that
okay.
thing.
When
Yeah.
are the next ones scheduled? That would be good to know.
Well, we don't really have another one scheduled. What I was thinking of doing, this is a very good question, is trying to do some more focus groups instead of like more public meetings like this. I mean, we could have more public meetings like this probably without like all the experts here. Every time we bring those guys in, it's like costs. But now that we have the presentation, we could do more public meetings, but I was thinking it would be really nice to get a group of parents of 10 to 13-year-olds, of teenagers. Like the book group I thought would be a really good focus group. so I would kind of like to spot do some things like that. Or maybe, if once we talk about the meetings that we want to attend as with library board members, we could just kind of say, okay, shower us with your thoughts, and then some of these neighborhood groups might feel like that's, what they need. I don't know.
Usually in Planet Building, your focus groups are going to give you the most valuable information, because the big public meetings are a lot of general information, and you'll get some specifics. But if you get like the parents that bring the kids to the reading program, or the 10 to 13s, or the whatever group, they're going to have specific things that are going to pick up for you that meat of what you really need to know.
Mm-hmm.
So, and of course, your focus group of your own staff as well.
Yeah.
So how many focus groups do you think you could fit in? Because they really need to be topical, like age groups, or,
Right.
or a specific focus group perhaps on the research and archive section.
Oh,
Something like
that's a
that.
good one.
I would also include homeschoolers as a separate.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, that might be a hard one to
Oh,
identify the people.
Oh, no, there
yeah.
are a lot of
Can you
homeschooling
do
networks
that?
around here that would be
Mhm.
easy
Got
to
contacts?
find.
There we are.
I don't
That'd be great.
homeschool, but.
That would really help. Those focus groups will really, I'm just echoing what he already said, they really pay off for the programming stage. But they don't do us any good after the programming's done. If you've got the block programming done, they aren't going to help us.
You don't
so.
see. That's what I'm not really clear on all that. You think that once the block programming is done, none of that input is valuable anymore?
Not much, really. At that point, you're designing.
Right.
Right now is the time
If
we
their
want the focus
information
groups.
won't help at that point, your staff's information will help a little more.
You'll continue to have staff input all the way through
Right.
the design processes, the design develops, and but really the focus groups telling the designers what the general program needs to be. You want to get as much nailed down as you can in the next 30 days.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll jump on it.
I have a question about how these groups, because I'm going to go to the Hamlet and Ashfield, but it seems like if you haven't thought it through ahead of time, it's hard for people to come up with useful suggestions. And so have a handout to give, or
Something to kind of set the agenda
like
in your head.
Questions to
exactly.
think about.
Because I sort of felt that with the book group, like Linda was there. Maybe one of them had really thought it through, and of course Linda and I had, but didn't put in
Yeah.
that much input. But just off the top of your head, you kind of don't.
Well, have you looked at the survey?
Yeah.
Well, what do you think about using those questions as
Well,
like jump off points?
Yes, I'm thinking, but how to have the people have those ahead of time. I think it would be useful if they have them before they come to a focus meeting, is my point.
Well, we can create a handout with those same questions.
Yeah,
Mhm.
whether just, connecting with the people so that they would look at that first was my
Opposite.
thought.
Mm.
Well, what I can do is
So Doc sending you.
when I post the presentation and try and like get that kind of back out, I can also like post a little flyer with the same questions, just like things
That
to
would
think
be
about
really
ahead of
good.
time or something.
Yeah.
And then we can make that available too. Because remember, the other thing I said is that, or that we decided last time, is that if we start going out to groups, that we would have some talking points.
Yeah.
And those are not done. So, I mean, that would all be part of it.
An architectural group that's done some libraries may have some talking points for focus groups.
Well, I could ask those guys.
Ask 'em.
I mean, because they've done tons of libraries.
And sometimes, it's not like 20 questions. It's 5
Okay.
questions that are going to give people to think during that meeting of what the key points that they want to contribute.
And to have a handout that we give them then, and this is what Betty did at the book group, it does have the link on whatever she gave to the questions online, so people can go home and think about it more. And then,
Yeah, they're little bookmarks.
right, so I think that's really good to have that.
Yeah, we've been handing them out left and right
Good.
at the library.
Are you getting many responses? do
Oh,
you know?
yeah, we have about 85 responses.
good.
So,
Oh, that's
I mean,
good.
that's pretty good since it's just
I think
gone
that's
up in a
excellent.
few days.
Oh, yeah.
So
Sure.
that's something. Yeah.
Good.
Well, I think I should try and get on the agenda for the Hamlet. They only meet once a month. At the end of this month, I think I'll
Okay.
be ready to give a presentation.
Okay, we can talk before then,
You need,
offline.
Backup?
Well, maybe. I'll call you. Okay.
You've already got that. That's all talks about.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, oh, people are into this, yeah. That's the thing, people are into this. We need to be sure that they feel like they've had a chance to give input, otherwise they'll
Yeah.
be like a
Right.
little miffed that they weren't
Exactly.
asked, you know?
Yeah.
When all's said and done, they can go to it and say, "This is my library. I
Mhm.
helped
That's
design this."
pretty
I helped-"
important.
Yeah.
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 Having gone through the design process with THA at OES, where I work, we had focus, I would call them focus group, several meetings where they did sort of an amazing thing where they had you pick images that represent different things to get a feel of what people wanted for the potential new building at OES. And then they actually had pieces that you could move around to think about how things are related to each other programmatically. So I think having sort of those talking points, or they weren't talking points exactly, but people were actually able to really think about how, how they would like to have the common area match up to, say, a resource area. Do you know what I mean? Where it was actual, and I don't know if we're at that.
Physically, they were looking at something? On
We
a
weren't
screen?
making it. No, they were
Or-
actual blocks.
Oh, I see. Oh.
And the reason they did that is to see relationships for programs
Right.
and relationships.
Well, was that for
within the-
staff though?
It was, but they were focus groups because it was unique needs within the school for grade level teams and specialists and the little. Do you know what I mean? So like, I think that there's. Do you know what? I don't know what I'm saying exactly, but
I like that idea.
Oh,
but it was actually
yeah.
very useful as not saying I need to have 7 computers, but it would be beautiful if we had a children's space that opened up into a reading patio, because there's that relationship
that's the
between
kind of input you
nature
want. Exactly.
and do you know what I mean? Like it was very
Yeah.
and it was a good activity the way we did it, because as a
Mhm.
focus group it did build community around that. You felt like you were creating,
Right.
and so
And that was at the program stage that you did that?
yeah, because we're not. I mean, yeah, I think that's what it would be called. We were still in the
Yeah, that's
design
right.
thinking process. Yeah,
That's
for it.
right.
Yeah. Mhm.
And it was they're very explicit saying, don't think you're going to get this. We just like we would want to know is what would people like? Do you
Correct.
want the children's area to be on the first floor? Is the YA section somehow separate from the larger parts of the adult building? Like what is the flow that people want in the building? Do you
Yeah.
walk into an atrium
Yeah.
because you want to
Yeah, what kind of
see the
special
trees?
space that
I mean,
relates to that? Yeah.
I guess I have like, in some respects, mixed feelings about some of that, because like, obviously that's not all up for grabs as far as what we can do because
Right.
of what we have,
right.
right? So, looking at it from like a librarian point of view, it's like, unpopular. It's like there needs to be a flow of services, as you guys know. I mean, as all of us can figure out, of tasks and stuff like that. And so it may mean that, where we would love to have something, it just is like does not make sense at all, because it's like this thing needs to be more central.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
But the idea
But that's okay because that's part of the
That's okay.
investigation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
That's part of
okay.
understanding it
Yeah.
too. I guess.
Thinking more creatively can't hurt. But like Laura said, it was implied we may not be able to do all this.
Right.
Yes.
But it was getting the community focus group feel for saying, for beginning school, it turned out it was really, really important that they had access to outside for the nature group. And it, again, we don't want complete people's dreams driving it entirely, because you do have the parameters within what we have to work, but it is that sense of what is important to the people who are using that space.
Mhm. Correct.
Well, the values can be, as her example about the part of the outside, well, that could end up being a visual thing, is all that we can do. We aren't really open to the outside, but we could emphasize the visual
Right.
aspect, since that's an important value.
Right.
I personally like the hands-on aspect of you're talking about. I never thought about that, but it reinforces citizen ownership of the plan,
Correct.
because now they can get their hands dirty.
Right.
not dirty, but you know what I mean? Get in there and move stuff around.
But I mean,
But it was
who-
framed
who
definitely
did
within
that?
design thinking. I mean, it was framed within,
Sure.
we're talking
So-
to this group of people to get your ideas on how this system might work.
So if I'm understanding it correctly, you got blocks that represent different things.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
this case, you got the kids' reading room, but you want a patio, atrium kind of
And
area
they
on
had
this side,
different things that
and then you'd have-
represented doorways.
You'd have another block saying, okay, here's a doorway, here's a computer section
Right.
for searching database, here's a section for surfing internet, here's nonfiction, here's fiction, here's
Right.
whatever. And
It's Minecraft all over again, right?
It kind of
Yeah.
is. And then what
Yeah.
they brought to us as a more
Tetris.
final product, which is what they're going to be presenting to the public as the potential design for fundraising, which we don't have to go through that part, doesn't look like what we came up with, but it definitely incorporated all of the ideas that came out of those sessions. So
Did parents, however, was staff doing
It was
that?
staff.
It wasn't parents, so
It
that it was a
wasn't.
little different than us.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
it's
it could be
actually-
something very useful to do with staff who understand the ebb
Right.
and flow of the day and of the building too.
And at
Right.
the end of it all, you get what you need. as opposed
Yeah,
to what
because
you
there's
want.
always some controlling parameters like
Yeah.
Right.
the flow or the
Right.
elevator or whatever it happens
The
to be.
existing building.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's but it all the feeling part of the family is what Laura brings up is important because you don't want people to feel like this is what they did to us. This is what we've got an opportunity to give input at least, and this little corner of this room touches it, so that's a pretty cool thing, you know.
Right. It's like,
And I understand that cost-wise, to have THA run a potential session like that is probably not optimal, but there were aspects to it that I wonder if we could incorporate in the focus group work, particularly with staff.
That's what I'd recommend is strictly focusing that level of intensity on the staff.
Yes.
The other focus groups I think need to stay pretty general because they're really not, for the most part, people who are trained to really think about spatial relationships and
Correct.
And their work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
They can think grandiose, but then grandiose only works within the parameters of what really works. So, you know, it's kind of, what is that good touchy-feely part of this that's going to make the
Right.
library nice?
in the end result, you want something that implies that we took that input and applied it to the environment, but we have to look at the people that are going to work in that environment and what their necessities are for working within that environment. And then just, like I said, trying to imply things so that you keep the community happy about their input. It's like you said, I helped input on this. It wasn't forced upon me.
Correct.
So is that something you can bring up to our consultants for something like that? Or?
Well, I could talk to them, yeah.
Yeah.
We were also, just to get back to this priorities thing, we were very clear with the group, the public, the other night, that one of the reasons we are talking to them is because we can't do everything, and that we need to know what's priority for them. You know, I repeated that like 5 times or something. It's like, you know, the world is our oyster right now, but we have to make choices.
Yes, you do.
You know, so that's, you know,
Yep.
we want to know what you want, but we also want to know mostly what you most want. You know, what's most important to you.
That is correct.
And
So-
what are the things that people want that overlap? Like, where's the Venn diagram crossovers? You know, and are there flexible spaces that can be used that would meet the need for a larger story time area, but then also for community book club meetings later in the evening? You know, like, you know,
Yeah.
where are the common affinity areas
Correct.
that can be shared?
Right. Okay. All right, so the other thing that is coming up is that we are going to have 2 board openings. And are you gonna stay?
I have to find. I am planning to.
Okay.
Okay.
I have to figure out a work piece in terms
Okay.
of possible change in hours, and I will
Okay.
know by the end of this week.
Okay, great.
And if the meeting times change, then that would make it easier. I don't know if that's
Here, you mean?
yeah.
What would be good for you?
Anytime after
Later.
5.
Okay.
Anytime after 5. Yeah.
Any day of the week, pretty much, other than.
Is that right?
Well, let's just open that topic up because it affects all board members. What do you think about meeting at 5:30?
Well, this room is used by the Natural Resource Committee, or somebody has scheduled a regular meeting. It's on your list.
National Resources Committee, second Wednesday month, 7 p.m.
Yeah, every
yeah.
month at this
Second-
time.
Second Wednesday of each month.
Yeah.
Well, usually we are not more than an hour and a half.
No, usually we're not more than an hour and a half. However, if they expect to get in here ahead of 7, just like I expect to get in here ahead of 4:30,
Mhm.
you know, and set up and stuff like that. So it's just something to consider, you know. I haven't really examined that list to see what nights are open.
You have one?
No, Gable, my copies morning.
You mean other than a
Or, no, I've
Wednesday
got
for
copies.
us?
Wait,
Monday.
What about
Tuesday?
Thursday?
Oh,
That's
If it
hard.
was the
That's
sec-
hard. That's a hard one for me.
Oh,
Thursdays.
okay.
Well,
Second
I-
Thursday
Yeah,
of each
That's one
month.
I don't like.
It's always going to be hard for somebody, but
Always.
the fact that it's at 4:30 is like, quite often, I think it restricts working people from even
Yeah.
applying,
Considering it, yeah.
you know?
That's kind of
And
bad.
so I don't know what the
Very-
history is of that, but that's really early.
Mhm. Yeah, it's the only one that's
Yeah.
like
Right.
that.
So,
Yeah, I don't think it's a good precedent.
bless you.
What if it were the fourth Wednesday? It doesn't look like there's a fourth Wednesday.
Looks
We
like
have city
a choice
commission
of
on
second
first
or
and third
fourth.
Wednesdays. The fourth Wednesday would be typically
There
open.
isn't a fourth Wednesday on here, I don't see.
That's
Right.
what she's saying.
That's why
That's what I'm
she's
saying.
suggesting the fourth Wednesday.
It's a day.
So, are you,
Fourth Wednesday, oh, well, Hamlet meetings.
It also doesn't look like there's a
Everybody.
third, there doesn't look like there's a third Monday. The third Monday of each month doesn't seem to be.
Foundation, fourth. That would be better for me,
On a Monday?
yeah.
I honestly don't know what it takes to move one of these, but I
No.
can certainly look into it.
Well, just that we're open to
I-
moving around and making.
I think not necessarily even for the flexibility of board members, but I do think that as we go through this process more, I think the fact that if more of
Public.
the public can
Yeah.
attend,
Correct.
Mhm.
I think that that is
Correct.
attractive and important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, Maureen, could you ask the powers that be what we have to do to?
Yeah, and do we want to specifically find out about the third Monday and the fourth Wednesday?
That would be great.
fine.
Okay.
It's just a day.
Just a day, that's right.
Same time or different time?
A little bit later.
A little
A
bit
little
later.
later for,
Like 5 or 5:30?
yeah.
5:30, yeah.
Would that work?
Yeah.
Right.
Right. And I know I'm forgetting something, but I think that's my report.
Very good. Thank you.
Yep.
We are now at
Communications.
communications.
Right.
Linda?
Do you have anything to report?
No.
Only in the sense that we're ramping up,
No, Thursdays are out.
and we're going to be having some meetings and trying to look for some new members
For the foundation?
for the foundation. right?
Yes. Yes. We've got Karen Martini on board
Yes.
now, and she's
Yes.
dynamo.
She's
She
the
is.
A
former
lot of-
person from
Development
CCC.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great.
At the community college.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're moving along.
Now, you've got the September 23rd date coming up?
And we invited the board, the entire board has been invited to that, is that correct?
Right. To help us brainstorm.
Support
Mm.
network.
Yeah.
What are we talking about?
That's right. You sent that out, didn't you?
September 23rd, give me that again.
Yeah, it's September 23rd.
Did we
Pioneer.
send
The
it to
Pioneer Center.
At 6 o'clock.
Oh, I'm big with
And you
it.
could RSVP to me. I'll email all of you.
Okay.
It's a brainstormer,
Yeah, I think
right?
Mo did
Do you know
send an
that?
email.
Do you know OE?
It's been goofy at my house.
Yeah, my daughter went there.
Forgot it. Thank you.
Good friends Wade Drake were.
Thank you.
An active member.
And your homework is then to think of possible people to be on the board or to be donors,
Yeah.
perhaps.
Any other new business or library member reports? Hearing none, do we move on to our next regular meeting and adjournment?
Yeah, we'll do that for now. If something changes, we can discuss by email.
Okay.
I'm thinking that we'd want to, I'm sorry, if we were going to make a change to our regular meeting, we'd
Yeah.
have our next one and announce it at that one, just to be sure that,
Correct.
and then change in November or something.
Yeah,
Okay.
What I'm thinking.
sounds
Okay.
right. Well, then I will adjourn the meeting of the Oregon City Library Board. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.